Welcome to MGIS TV, and today we have with us Danielle. Not so long ago, in fact, with the class, we looked at the language of fashion. We looked at how does fashion speak, and how fashion itself is a language. And we wrote a book called Fashion Dictionary. And unlike other fashion dictionaries, the idea was to sort of look at, sort of use clothing as a prism to talk about perhaps other things. How so many emotions and narratives get associated with, let's say, articles of clothing, or perhaps even aspects of dressing, or even undressing for that matter, or even aspects of a garment, like a collar. And Danielle has written a lovely piece on collar. In fact, this dictionary is composed alphabetically. So we have entries from A to Z. Unfortunately, we don't have a copy with us right now, but it has been printed, and a lovely cover by Ria, a front and back cover, in fact, which will be available also to purchase, to read in the library. But I thought it would be a cool thing to do, to have one of the students who is a keen contributor to the magazine read her entry. So these are actually, in a way, narratives, or what would you say, short stories, poems, parading as dictionary entries. It's not a traditional. There's some great fashion dictionaries out there, like Fairchild's Fashion Dictionary. Thames and Hudson has come out with a great fashion dictionary. But those fashion dictionaries are, by and large, working on the level of denotation. They're looking at garments, perhaps even histories of garments, but they don't necessarily express a subjective voice. It's not necessarily written by an author in that sense, where their personal subjectivity is shining through the a written piece. So here we have Danielle and her perspective / definition of a collar. Please go ahead and read it for us.
It's raining, and I'm in the worst possible place, outside. My clothes are drenched. My shoes, which admittedly don't cost more than 20 quid, are ruined. I will have to buy new shoes. And the fact that the screen says that the next bus is in 40 minutes doesn't offer any comfort to me, discomfort or otherwise. I've spent 60 quid in the last month, but every time I buy a new pair of shoes, I buy the same pair. It's a conscious choice I make. I know they don't last with the rain, yet it seems as if it's my destiny to be buying shoes that are ephemeral. Everything in my life is fleeting. My happiness, my shoes, but I can't help but notice the absurdity of it all. My collar clings to my skin like a needy friend, but this perhaps is my destiny. To buy Bosch shoes, to wear Bosch clothes, to work at my Bosch blue-collar job, whose collar, by the way, isn't even very pretty.
Lovely work. And here you saw Danielle actually only got to the collar towards the end of the piece.
Yeah.
And if I may, because I've been talking so much, but I think I should turn it to you. And you wrote this a while back, so perhaps, I don't know if you can take your head or your heart back to that space, but what inspired you to sort of, the blue collar? What is the blue collar?
I kind of started out writing this piece wanting to write it about shoes.
Okay.
But then as I kept on writing and just thinking and kind of observing what the piece would be like, I kind of got an idea to maybe make it about this person who works a very, a job that he does not really like.
Right.
And that's what a blue collar job is. A lot of blue collared workers aren't really enjoying what they're doing.
Right.
And this person is obviously struggling, and I use the word quid, which is English slang for pound.
Right.
And it's something that I picked up when I lived in the UK. But it rains a lot there, and the weather's really mucky, and it's
dreary.
It's dreary. It really is. And anytime that you would step out, your clothes would get ruined or your shoes would get ruined unless you had really good shoes.
Right.
But because this person works a blue collar job,
Right.
he can't afford nicer shoes.
Right. It's amazing. This piece crystallized in such a short space the ability to sort of look at clothing as a veritable tapestry of a sociological message. This, a blue-collared worker. The collar itself is associated, or via her writing, has become associated with the workplace. And it says so much about that person's life. When we write people, we always need some veritable tapestry, some symbol, some material via which we are able to express something else, without which it's very difficult to write. You still need something visible, and clothing, and I had done this workshop with these students also because I'm writing my own fashion dictionary and I write on fashion. And I say I write on fashion, it doesn't mean that I'm not a fashion writer insofar as I'm researching fashion, but I'm using, again, the language of clothing, dress, as a veritable figurative and literal tapestry, because tapestry is also an aspect, or it's also an article of clothing, to sort of talk about something else. And I think Danielle did it very beautifully, how she was able to speak of her personal perspective of her collar via a blue-collared worker, and to look at the collar as a site of a narrative of a human being, a life. So much comes out of the collar. And I encourage our listeners, our viewers, to think of this a little more. TV can also be intellectual. Unfortunately, TV is associated as an idiot box, and I haven't watched television myself in 20 years, but you have interactive TV. Perhaps you can also start thinking, well, what is the significance of a necktie? I always thought that the necktie replaced the sword, because in days of gallantry you had people who fought, they had swords, and now they were limited to the workspace, and the workspace became a place where you wore coat and tie. But that's, again, just a very personal subjectivity. It need not necessarily be everyone's perspective. But that was the fun of writing this work with you guys. Thank you for sharing your piece. It was a lot of fun. And perhaps, my dear viewer, you could also try writing an entry in a dream, or let's say a dream fashion dictionary.